This is Dr. Andy Yates, this is the Incongruous channel, and this is my presentation on how energy, theoretically, is the solution to everything. That is, everything paranormal, supernatural, spiritual, psychic, etc., etc. And we'll get to all of that. I presented the theory. Here it is. This is high-tech stuff, isn't it? All right. That theory 1, everything in the universe is energy. Theory 2, life is an energy. And theory 3, paranormal phenomena can be explained by the theory of life energy. So that's the important thing, is the life energy. That's what we're talking about, right? So, but obviously we need to look at death. We touched into that at part 2. This is part 3. So now we're looking at extending beyond that. So what is death? Well, death can be defined as when all organic functions vital to life stop completely. So other definitions compare death to life, so that death is the conditions that where the conditions that define life do not exist. Well, of course, if we're doing that and death is always related to a definition of life, then we need to define what life is. Now, some definitions of life state that life is when an organism is capable of reproduction, reacting to its environment, growth, and metabolism. Now, these kind of physical definitions to me seem kind of thin, because what we're talking about, with human beings at least, is an organism that can also think creatively, imaginatively, abstractly, can reason and remember. And then the question is, do those other abilities simply disappear when we die? The function and the definition of death varies. In the past, it was centered around the heart. So if your heart was beating, you were alive. If your heart stopped beating, you were dead. But then we know with advanced CPR and artificial respiration and all that kind of thing, you can keep the heart pumping. As long as blood's flowing and being oxygenated around the body, that will keep the other organs alive, and you'll stay alive until the heart can be restarted or replaced by some kind of mechanical thing that does the same stuff. So nowadays, the function is now on brain death or brain stem death. Because if those parts aren't working and they're not recoverable, then there's no possibility of communication between the brain and the body. So all the impulse to breathe, the heart to beat, the digestion to work, the lymphatic system to flow, all of that, they're no longer active. So the person is dead. And what happens is, of course, is then there's this change in energetic function of the body, because the energetic function of the body, instead of then being self-maintaining or whatever, it then becomes, it starts to decay. So the energy is still there, but it's changed its function now. Its function is now pointing more towards the process of decay. But see, none of those definitions refer to the state of the mind and its state of function. Now, we should know that even the location of the mind is not known, and it's the subject of much debate and research. I mean, some people think the mind exists in the brain, some people think it exists in an aura around the body, some people think it exists between the two. We just don't know. Okay? Well, because we don't know what the mind is precisely and where it is precisely, because of this, we also don't know what precisely it is. Now, my theory too states that life itself is an energy. So if we apply that theory against the aspect of death, then death is when life energy completely leaves a person. So we can consider that life energy is made up of two components. There's the physical side, the organic life energy, if you like, and that's the thing that allows the organism to be capable of reproduction, reacting to its environment, growth, metabolism, and the mind life energy, which is the bit that allows the organism to think creatively, imaginatively, abstractly, able to reason and remember. And from this component definition, organic energy is present in all organisms, whereas mind-life energy may only be present in certain more kind of advanced organisms, so like human beings or whatever. All right. So my pages are out of order here. I got a bit of a Boris Pepper Pig going on here. Anyway, so, but organic life energy relates to death in that when it's gone, organic functions of life stop. But then we still haven't answered that question. What about the mind life energy? All right. Organic energy relies on the known forms of energy in the system. So you've got electrical systems flowing through the brain and the nervous system. You've got chemical energy, which provides metabolism, heat, and internal communication. You've got mechanical energy, which drives the muscles. Yeah. Mind-life energy is something completely different. And we need to theorize its location and nature. Now, when a human dies, the organic energy stops or is converted to other forms of energy. So you can imagine that electrical signals moving through the body go through the nerve path, get to where they're going and stop. Do their function and stop. Okay, chemical processes continue reacting, doing whatever it is they're meant to do until the chemical reaction stops. And then the energy will have changed either from one potential energy source to another or to some kinetic source, and then back to potential and then stop. Basically, everything stops or changes its energy to something else. And that something else, when you die, is decay and cooling. But we're not sure what happens to the mind life energy. What if that continues? Let me give you an example. In December 2019, I stopped breathing as a result of some surgery, abdominal surgery I'd had. And I might have died. Okay. Now, the abdominal surgery was across my rectus abdominis, stomach muscles. It obviously cut into them. And I was sitting at my laptop, trying to do some stuff, trying not to cough, because when I coughed, it hurt a lot because of the scar, the scar and everything, very fresh. This was some hours after the operation, that's all. And I coughed, my abdominal muscles seized up, somehow the muscles up the sides seized up, and then my diaphragm muscles seized up. I couldn't open my chest to take in air. I could not take an inward breath. And what happened was my mind, and I keep pointing to my head, but my mind split into two different parts. It was as if it had split into an organic part and a mind-life energy part. And the organic part was desperately trying to restore me back to my normal organic functioning, breathing, basically. Whereas this other part of my mind just kind of separated away, stood back at a distance, if you like. And I remember thinking with that distanced part of my mind, the dissociated part of my mind, thinking this: if I am unable to take an inward breath, my brain will eventually run out of oxygen, about 3 minutes, and I will stop trying to breathe. And my heart will stop as a consequence of that. But then I also remember thinking, well, there's no pain or discomfort in my mind, so this isn't that bad. If I'm dying, it's not painful, it's not scary, it's okay. Yeah, and it's funny because I'd have thought, oh, I don't want to die because I'm leaving people behind. There are people I love and all this kind of thing. But for some reason, I was just completely detached from that. And I felt physically free of all physical encumbrances. You know, I often get pain in my back, gone. You know, I often, feel a bit discomfort when I sit in a chair, gone. I just felt totally free. I didn't have to pay bills. I didn't have to worry about painting the house or fixing this or that. Gone. It's quite a wonderful feeling in that way. Now, I must have made a noise. I couldn't take an inward breath, but I probably could still take an outward breath. I can't really remember. And I probably made a noise, and my partner came along, and she's skillful at therapy and stuff, and so she would have worked on me. I was working on myself with my organic part of my mind, and eventually we got me started breathing again, which started me back in that function. And eventually I caught up with my breath, and eventually I came back to normal, which was, I suppose, a good thing. Otherwise I wouldn't be here making this YouTube video, right? But I could have died. If she hadn't been there, maybe I would have done. And actually, that would have been okay. It's weird, isn't it? Yeah, it would have been okay. But the point was, my mind split in these two different ways. It was as if my organic body was dying, but my mind just continued. That's what I felt. I would continue. I experienced it. There's no theory. There's no, thought about spirituality or anything like that. I just experienced that my mind just seemed to keep going, or at least the dissociated part of it. Now, I talked about extrasensory perception in part 2 and the limitation we have of our own regular 5 senses. Now, there's a lot of experiential evidence that people can see an aura around the body. And I've worked with people and done all that. Now, personally, I haven't been able to do that. I've tried many times to see or perceive an aura around somebody's body. It's never worked for me. But that doesn't mean it doesn't work for other people, of course. So, and there are even reports of, because what are they seeing in that aura? Maybe they're seeing that mind energy, that mind life energy. I don't know. Maybe they can see it. I mean, there are even reports of that people have taken photographs when someone dies and they see the spirit leaving the body. Trouble is, every photograph on the web, you've got to think, yeah, is that real? Is it faked? Is it photoshopped? Is it whatever? Don't know. But unless I saw it myself, and I haven't, but I have had that own experience of myself where the two separated out. Maybe that's what happens. Maybe the mind life energy is released from its physical tether, and that's what's captured on those photographs. That's what somebody who's sensitive to seeing auras can actually see, the mind life energy. Because our understanding is that energy cannot be destroyed or created, but it can be changed or converted to other types of energy. So what happens when life energy is released from the body? Well, the natural process with organic energy is for it to change to other forms of energy, and so progress from an individual and unique energy package to become some part of the energy of the universe. That is the process of decay. But the mind life energy seems to be separate from that organic energy. So it follows, if that's true, that then there is a different kind of energy in a different form of an energy that we already recognize. And we've seen from part 1 that there are a lot of different types of energy, and we're also discovering new types of energy. So it's certainly not beyond the bounds of possibility that we could find a new type of energy and go, oh, there it is. There's the mind life energy right there. And what could also happen is that mind life energy, when it's released from its physical tether, when it becomes separate from the organic system, actually has some kind of cohesion. It sticks together. So you've got a lump of mind, life, energy, and that could hold it together. That means the person, the thing that is the person, the thing that is the character, the ego, the personality, the everything about that person is still there. What's in their mind is still there in that cohesive package of mind, life, energy. And that would be, as I said, the individual, the character, the personality, the me is all maintained. Interesting, isn't it? Okay. So, let's talk about spirits. Consider a mind, life, energy package that's got cohesion. So let's take the hypothetical case that has just been released from its physical attachment. So you've got this package of mind, life, energy, the character, the personality, all of that in this package. Now the spirit, that's what I'm going to call it. I'll probably flip back and forth. These words, semantics, is very difficult. So let's just say they all mean the same thing. The spirit, the mind, life, energy, whatever. The spirit has all the important parts of the pre-existing human being, apart from the physical body. So it's now completely in energetic form. It's almost like a final step of evolution, a final step of enlightenment above the normal levels. You know, you could think of it in terms of I don't know, the chakras, which I'll talk about later. It's the above the chakras. You could think of it in terms of the concept of the human brain being the reptilian, the mammalian, the human, the spiritual, the mind life package. You can think of it lots of different ways. But anyway, so I'm not exactly sure how spirits move around, or even if they do. And perhaps they become just fully connected to the universe, which in a sense is how I felt, released of physical constraint. Maybe they are everywhere at once. Maybe they're in some separate dimension. I don't like this idea of dimensions because we've no evidence that the dimensions exist. But physicists talk about, 11 dimensions as part of the string theory concept. I don't know. Head can't go beyond 3. Well, actually, that's not true. When you do computer science, you can get into multi-dimensional arrays as a mathematical principle. It doesn't matter if this doesn't mean anything to you, but it's mathematics. It's not real. It's theory, mathematical theory. Anyway, but I've experienced things that make me think that the cohesion of the energy package is maintained and can be maintained. And if it's allowed to, it will diffuse and become part of the universal consciousness. But if it's focused, it will stay part of a cohesive package. You know, and I mean, I suppose that just going out and becoming part of the universe is a bit scary because we're used to being individuals, single individual packages. But from what I get, from feeds I get, it's really actually not, because you become part of a bigger thing. You actually have more abilities, more connections, more knowledge, more understanding, etc., etc. So it's actually an improvement. Anyway, so there may be an attachment between the mind, life energy, the spirit or whatever, and the organic energy that is severed when death has occurred. You can imagine, physically, you can imagine the one going off this way and the other one just staying where it is on the floor of the coroner's room or whatever, and this goes floating off, hospital room, whatever, right? But imagine that someone's close to death. So this process is starting to happen, yeah? And then somehow they're stuck in that process, or they're maintained in that state of near separation. And I think that kind of seems to me to be a good explanation for a near-death experience, because they've now become, the spirit, part of the bigger thing, the universe, they're touching into that, they're connecting with it as they are becoming a spirit energetic being, whereas a physical being is still there and perhaps can be resuscitated in some way and go back together. So if in a near-death experience the spirit leaves the body gradually and still maintains that partial connection, and then should the body be revived, it can eventually return and the person will reintegrate and become a whole person again. But while the spirit is temporarily released, it will achieve some kind of that connection to the energy of the universe, what I've just said. And that seems to fit with a lot of the NDE experiences I've met. Being connected to the universe enables a vast potential of understanding, of travel, of connection. But the physical being is right there in the hospital bed, say. Still there, right there. There. But the spirit is off, it's gone. Now, in my research, I came to the belief that there is a fundamental difference between the brain and the mind. To expand that a bit, it seems that the brain is to me, it seems the brain is part of the physical body, right? Oh, I've run over time. All right, let's stop there. This is part 3. Gosh, I was enjoying myself there. We've just talked about the concept of a separate spirit, a mind-life energy with cohesion. In part 4, we'll go on to the next bit, which is going to be talking about the difference between the brain and the mind. All right, this is Dr. Andy Yates on the Incongruous channel. This is part 3 of my theory of energy being the connection between all matters paranormal. Take care until part 4.